we've taken a look at what government has done, what private sector has done, and of course with the foundation, it starts with a number, getting so many people into jobs rather than kind of building it up from the business side. So Ajay, can you sort of walk us through, the foundation and how they approach this idea of getting people into jobs and the role that skills plays in doing so?
Okay, sure, I'll happy to do that. Good morning to everybody, and Rose, at the break, I was told that I need to be here. Ramesh had a crisis with one of his companies.
He runs 23 companies, so there's always a crisis, but one of them happened to be right now.
And since his companies generate most of the wealth that I get to spend, I'm happy to substitute for him. So let me talk about the skill gap. Why is skill talked about globally today? So let's start at the top, and then I'll talk about what is it that we at the foundation are doing, as well as what are the other organizations in India that are doing on skilling. So today the skill gap is a global phenomenon. What academia is producing and what industry wants, there is a huge delta. And that's reflected in what's happening. If you look at India today, even the IT industry, where the Indian software engineers are rated the highest, NASSCOM, which is a industry body, they did a recent study on the graduates that are coming out of Indian engineering organization, and 80% of them are unemployable. So they don't have the talent that there is. So if you look at Infosys, which is one of the largest Indian IT companies, they've set up a large campus in Mysore, where they pre-hire students. They hire students on graduation. They put them in a one-year training program before they engage them in jobs. Also on the US side, even developed economies have a problem with the skill gap today. About 3 years ago, when we were looking at data, and the reflection of a skill gap is really, it shows up in youth unemployment, because these are students that are graduating and they are not employable. 3 years ago, when we looked at the US data, there were about overall unemployment was somewhere around 8%. Youth unemployment was 16%. And youth between 16 and 19 was close to 24%. At that time, about 4 million jobs were open in the US, and 60% of the employers were complaining that they can't find the talent to fill the jobs. So I think you have talked about that as well. So that phenomena exists today. In fact, now, if you look at the data today, the unemployment rate in US has gone down to 5%, but still the youth unemployment is 3x, and the open jobs have gone up from 4 million to close to 6 million. So another reflection that it's the skill gap that is causing the issue. So about 3 years ago, we as a foundation said, what can we do in this area? And since we were focused in India, we started in India with the skill. It's a massive problem. India is adding about 1 million people a month to the workforce. So essentially every month, about 1 million youth are turning 18 and are entering the workforce, or they are going to colleges. So there is a massive demand. When we looked at the entire skill pyramid, we found that if you looked at an 18-year-old that's graduating 12th grade, about 9 million students graduate 12th grade in India. About 4 million go to these 3-year, 4-year colleges that are existing. 4.5 million students are left behind. And in this day and age, 12th grade education with a knowledge economy taking shape, a 12th grade education is not enough. The new K-12 is really the new K-14. I think President Obama also recently talked about making community colleges free in the US. And India has nothing really. So there is a 12th grade, and then there is college education. So in between, there is a huge gap. And this is what I think Tarun and others had looked at the problem and set up the National Skill Development Corporation. We as a foundation are an operating foundation. Most of us have spent time in the Valley, so we wanted to bring in technology innovation to scale to address this problem. So what we are doing is, so we targeted 12th graders that are not going to college. And for them, in US, if you look at the similar data, 25% of US graduates go to four-year colleges. I think some of you will be shocked by that number, but the number really is only 25% of US graduates go to four-year colleges. About 46% go to community colleges, which are the two-year program. So the community college model in the US was a very good model. Just like Tarun talked about, US training industry can have an opportunity to go to India and train the 500 million youth that we are talking about. US community colleges have an opportunity to set up community colleges in the US because there is a huge gap. So we pushed that idea with the government of India. At that time, it was Manmohan Singh's government, and we got good traction even there. And what has resulted in there is they have put in a legislation now where there will be recognition of skills and training. They are setting up equivalent of community colleges, which will have upward mobility into the four-year college, so it's not a dead-end stream. The Indian government has now funded about 400 community colleges as a pilot and are collaborating with foreign governments. Tarun talked about Prime Minister Modi is in Canada now signing up agreement with the Canadian community colleges. So we had originated and started this with US, and we are finding US community colleges not as aggressively pushing. In fact, Canada and Germany and Australia have jumped onto this bandwagon. US has not. So it's an opportunity in the US to jump onto this. Coming back to the foundation, while these colleges are getting set up, I think we cannot wait for these infrastructure to come in place. If we go back to the brick and mortar model of educating that large population, it will take decades, if not half a century. So we, as a foundation, said, why don't we leverage technology to impart this? So the foundation focus has now shifted from sort of setting this mechanism in place to investing in what we call the soft infrastructure. The soft infrastructure essentially is creating pedagogy, creating learning modules. Today, how many of you, when you're stuck trying to learn something, go to YouTube and watch videos? Show of hands.
Not bad.
Exactly. So that's what we are trying to do, essentially, is to transform. So the way we started this as a pilot, actually we are doing this both in the US as well as in India. Let me talk about India. India has about 1.2 billion people, as you know. Healthcare is a major issue. Nurses and nursing assistants, there is a demand for somewhere around 1 million nursing assistants in the next 5 years. You don't need a college degree for that. You can take a 12th grader, put them through a 1-year or an 18-month program, and they can become nursing assistants, earning family supporting wages. In the absence of community colleges in their industry was doing that job. So we went to the industry and said, give us the content that you have. This is really not your job of training. Your job is to take care of the patients. We will work with us. We will transform your content, which is very teacher-centric and non-scalable, and transform it into videos, animation, and gaming, and offer it through the cloud to everybody in the industry. So about 18 months ago, we worked with one of the hospital chains. Today, we are working across 5 big hospital chains, about hundreds of hospitals that have adopted this program. Similarly, on hospitality, we are doing the same thing. And we are now entered into an agreement with the defense industry. Defense industry needs a lot of support. All the equipment that you are importing from defense need to be maintained and managed. So we are building up those platforms. So essentially, long story short, the investment in skilling can sort of only happen through leveraging modern technology to address the problem at scale. And that's what we are trying to achieve.
That's terrific, Ajay. Thank you. Great.